OCO fam, what's up? So the last video I made about Pan-Africanist Strikes Back, Brandon's YouTube channel of him responding to Killer Priest's interview with Dane Calloway. I continued to watch the whole thing, and he actually ended up calling his grandmother to chat with her about a little bit about their history. Now it was hilarious because she was confirming that he had indigenous roots. You know what I'm saying? That they were Indian, Aboriginal, and they had got their land back. They sold their land to to a group of people. But I'm about to break this down here because Brandon basically claims that means nothing. So I'm about to share this little clip of him calling his grandmother on his live stream absolute jewels. But I'm gonna break it down piece by piece. So this is it, y'all. This is the video clip of Brandon, Pan-Africanist Strikes Back. He's responding to Killer Priest interviewing Dane Calloway, and this is the part where he starts to call his grandmother. Brandon starts to call his grandmother to ask her about them having African ancestry and stuff like that, and she goes into how they're Indian. But I'm gonna respond to it clip by clip right here.
I literally just walked in the door, and so yeah, that's real. Hold on, yeah, I'm okay. On with the ancestors, which is my grand. With these particular tribes, me personally, of course, I could walk onto the reservation. I have my card, but the problem is I don't know. I don't like how it's being ran. Okay, and I don't like who it's being was a white family. He told me, and this what blew my mind. He told me at that time, he was when he was a young boy, he was out there playing basketball and football with the young white boy that lived across the street from him. They ended up grown. I would have never known. Now, I mean, and the reason why is because during my grandfather's era, he was born in 1936. The era where he was raised in the 1930s, 1940s, at that time, our elders of the family members were being harassed, killed, hung. I could just simplify it just like that, for even claiming Indian. Okay? And, he saw certain things with my family members, like my great-grandmother, which is his mother.
Guys, I'm going to try this again. My grandmother was born in 1943. I'm going to call her and ask her. He said his grandfather was born in 1937.
So, his Dane Calloway's grandmother is a little bit older than Brandon's grandmother, but he's getting ready to call his grandmother here.
I'm going to call my grandma. She was in the South. I'm going to ask her, were black people being hung for claiming that they were Native American? Excuse me. Hello? Dot. This is Eden. Please let me talk to Dot real quick. I need her for 2 seconds. Hello? Dot, I have to ask you a quick question. Just one question. Okay. Dot, when you were young, right? were black people getting killed for claiming Indian ancestry? Like, were people pressuring you guys in the South to deny being Indians or else they'll kill you?
Well, at that time, we didn't even know we were Indian. We didn't even know. Maybe my dear knew, but she never talked about it.
Right. So nobody at that time was walking around like, yo, I'm Cherokee Indian.
No, never. I would never remember nothing like that.
So you guys were not getting killed or like threatened to deny Indian heritage?
Because we didn't claim it. Because we didn't know we had that in us. I guess my dear didn't know.
So when you guys learned about Indian, like when you learned about Indian, like in your family, that was much later on.
That was, not where we are now.
And that was basically from the words of family members, people you guys knew from your family.
Yeah, my cousin and Miss.
I'm going to pause it right here right quick. See, this is what I'm saying here, man. Because I already know what he's finna get into. I already know what he's finna try to say, that not to trust your family. He's going to say that. Now, that's the thing here, man. That's the thing with indoctrination, man. You rather trust someone's, a stranger's word over your own family. Your family tells you your history, not no history book that you would sit in front of in school. Your family gives you your history about your ancestries, your own family.
But we're just talking because I remember way back when my daddy was supposed to be sending us some money. They came into the money and they got property and stuff. But Pat felt that they already had it. But they got property in from somewhere, and they sold it to the white man.
So would you
now y'all heard that, right? Y'all heard that, right? So she said they had land. They got their land back. They got their land back. Which from the government. Which literally means that the government acknowledged them as Indians. Aboriginal Indians. They don't do that. You have to have legal documents. They got their land back. And they got money too. They technically got reparations. And then they sold their land to the white man, is what she said. And I'm pretty sure Brandon himself can look that up. He can get those documents. Because like I say, you cannot get nothing done with this government unless you have legal documents. You can't walk up in a courtroom with a history book and try to see if you can sue or get any justice or reparations without any evidence of your ancestors being African slaves from Africa.
Not all of them, because they got their land down there today, but Maddie May sold hers, and I don't know what our daddy did with his portion.
So would you say that the Indian lineage is 100% guaranteed, or something that you?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay, but what would you say is the?
She said that their Indian heritage is 100% guaranteed. And why that is because it's on record. According to the government, it is on record. So as you can see, Brandon's grandmother confirmed that he was Indian. And when he got wind of this, he hurried up and made a live stream bringing on his mother and his aunt to co-sign with being African. And the only thing that they had to hold on was an admixture result that they got from ancestry.com that says that they're African. And when I tell you guys that those so-called genealogy DNA tests doesn't mean that your ancestors come from Africa by using admixture results. And I'm going to give two examples, quick examples of this. The first, not really examples, but let me just break this down. Like, you cannot take my DNA or take, I'm going to just go with that. You can't take my DNA, compare my DNA with a group of strangers that I have no kinship to over in Africa. And because we match in terms of ethnicity, that my ancestors come from Africa, without having no knowledge or no confirmation that these people are distantly related to me, that they compare my DNA to really kind of theorize on that. You know what I'm saying? Another quick example is like, if you Black American and you Black American and you watching this video, let's say that they took our DNA and they compared our DNA. They compared my DNA against your DNA. They compared our DNAs with each other. We will match in terms of that we are of the same ethnicity, Black American. But we would not match in terms of us being actually kin, actually blood related to one another as a distant cousin or brother or uncle or mother or father or anything like that. We will not match. We will not share the same ancestral line. And this is how they are comparing our DNA to Africans over in Africa. Because we match in terms of our ethnicity, they theorize that our ancestors came from over there, when in fact we don't have any distant cousins over there. Because if so, why haven't they told you the names of your African distant cousins? Because the people that they compare you to are not related to you to begin with. You just share the same ethnicity as them because you have Negro features. And for those out there who's saying African is your ethnicity, African is not an ethnicity. It's not an ethnicity. It's a continent. Africa is a continent, or your nationality, or the fact that you are born over in Africa. All Negroid human beings do not come from Africa. Okay? They have no evidence of that. Especially as of recent. No evidence of that. You cannot compare my DNA to a stranger and then assume that a living stranger at that. They're not testing your DNA with dead people. They're testing your DNA with Africans living over in Africa today, and they're saying that your ancestors come from Africa because y'all ethnicity match. What kind of sense does that make? What kind of sense does that make? But I got a video that's going to get real deep with this. Another thing that they tried to go over to try to, I think they touched on them getting the land and all that stuff through sharecropping and all that stuff like that. Well, sharecropping was the reason why you lost the land, or why you probably lost the land in all other Black Americans in the first place. And let me kind of break that down. They would come to many so-called Black Americans, Indians who had land because they want to make money, lender, businessman, banks. In most cases it was banks probably. And they wanted to make money off of crops. And if you had little to no crops, they would give you credit, seeds, and they would give you seeds in the form of credit. In some cases, maybe money, but it was most of the time seeds. They would give you these seeds as credit or a form of a loan, and you will have your land collateralized. You have your land collateralized against this credit. So if anything happens to those seeds and you don't sell those seeds and you are unable to pay back profit on those seeds or whatever like that, they get to have your land pretty much. And when Black Americans would sign off on these little contracts that they knew nothing about or whatever like that, they will grow these crops and try to sell these crops on the market, and they will purposely drop the price of these crops so that the Black Americans won't be able to sell these crops or pay back the lender. And so they would default on these credits, and then all of a sudden the lenders will become the owners of the Indians' land, the Black Americans' land. And then they would have to do another contract with the lenders as indentures, in most cases indentures. Like the only way I'm gonna give you, the only way I'm gonna give you your land back, you gotta work for me for a certain amount of time, or you work for me for a certain amount. You work for me on your land. I own your land. You become a slave of your own land, an indentured, a servant, an employee of your own land, working and helping the lender sell the crops or whatever like that in order to pay the lender back, in order to get your land back. Or you just work for them a certain amount of time if you wasn't getting paid. And then when that contract is up, then you will get your land back when the lender feels the need that he have made enough money off of your land. And that's how that was happening. In most cases, that happened to a lot of so-called Black Americans, the indigenous people who had land. In most cases, that and that's probably most likely what happened to Brandon. You know what I'm saying? And so you can't. And another thing, you can't sit there and claim that Indians, the reason why the government gave y'all the land, you can't really chop that up as like maybe your ancestors were slaves to Native Americans. No, you actually have to go and look and prove that by record. They will have it on record. They will have it on on one of the census records. They will have it on one of the 1800 census records that your family was slaves of Indians on that particular property. They will have that on the census. So you still will have to go and actually look at that on the census to prove that. Look at the land deed too to see who was the very first owner. And I'm betting that his people was the very first owners. It's the reason why the government gave it back to them, because it was taken from them illegally. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know what I'm saying? And so that's the thing, man. You got to look at the documents to prove that. And just because you had, let's say, an African slave, not an African slave, just because you had a slave in your family doesn't necessarily mean that they're from Africa. Because then you will have to go and look at all of the documents of the voyages of immigrants coming over here to America to confirm that they are on one of the voyage lists. Other than that, your people aren't, your slave ancestor is not from Africa. It's not. They were regular American slaves, indigenous American slaves. Just because you have a slave in your family doesn't mean that they came from Africa. You have to actually see that they immigrated over here on those voyage lists, because they documented everybody who came over here. They documented all of that down of everybody in coming over here. Slaves, white peasants, white slaves, Africans, all kinds of people. They documented all of that. And so your family members that are slaves should be on those lists. Or if you had a number of slaves that go way back, they should be on that list. They should be on that list. And that's the only way you can prove that you from Africa, or that you had any family from Africa. This is why documents matter, man. Documents matter. Documents matter. And even look at ADOS. Even ADOS even that group, ADOS is big on documents and lineage, because you can't go to court and take a scholarly paper to court, or take a history book to court, or a DNA admixture test to court and say, we are African men, and sue them as a plaintiff. You got to come with evidence. How can the judge know, even if you came in there and said, this says that I'm African because it is DNA result? The judge is going to want to see the victim. They're going to want to see the ancestor, the existing victim that suffered from this slavery, to give you reparations. You have to show the government the existence of these slaves. You can't come in that court. Other than that, how can the judge prove that you had an African slave, or an American slave for that matter? You have to come in there and show them the documents of your existing ancestors to know, for the judge to know that they exist. That's why I'm so big, and all people, OCO out there, we so big on documents. And then some of y'all out there who say, why you gotta go, you want to say that we go off of white man education system? Why y'all going off of white men? White men wrote them documents. Well, that's the point. That's the point, because they wrote and documented and recorded everything. And so now that they're trying to flip this narrative to say that we from Africa, we like, no, look at this document. Look at this. Look at these documents. No, y'all wrote this down. Look at these documents. What are they going to say now? They contradict themselves. What are they going to say now? And so we can use that against them. We can use that against them from the National Archives and the Library of Congress and stuff like that. We can use that. We can use their own stuff against them because they wrote it down. That's what is going to bite them in the butt. Okay. But anyways, you know, like Brandon and his mom and his aunt, I'm not trying to say they don't, but they had nothing else to go on but the fact of an admixture result. They had nothing to go on. They have more proof that what's crazy is they have more proof that they're Indians than they do African. Because they don't have no record, or they have yet to find a record of an existing African slave. So if reparations come out, they're not going to ditch it out just to black people, just because off of the theory that all black people had ancestors from Africa that were slaves. They can't do that. You can't sue the government to do that. You have to come in there and they have to see the victims, all of the victims. They have to be able to count all of the victims and give out to the victims that suffered from this. Okay, understand what I'm saying? This is why documents is way more important than a freaking DNA test, a scholarly paper, because all that stuff is just up in the air. It's just fictions. You believe you came from Africa based on a generalized theory that everybody ancestors came from Africa. You gotta see and prove it to yourself that you had an existing African slave. Okay? African slave ancestor. Okay? And that was in your family. So that's it. That live stream didn't go anywhere and still has no merit or proof until Brandon and his mom and his aunt actually go look at their records to find out if they had an African slave ancestor that was on the voyage list saying that they came from Africa over here. Other than that, you reply to me, you can't say that you had oh yeah, I debunked this, I shut that down. No, homie. No, homie. No, that's not how that works, homie. You're Indian, bro. You're Indian. Just accept it. Just accept that you are Indian. And his grandmother was so honest. She wasn't even trying to deny being African. She was just like, Brandon, I don't know. I know that we Choctaw. She said she know that for 100%. Why? Because it's on record. It's on record. The government can see it. It's on record. The government knows of its existing, the people that exist that was Indian in their family. And that's them. It's them. It's them. But anyways, peace out, guys. I'm going to come out with a video more on the DNA tests and stuff like that. But peace out, Watto. And, you know, for my people out there, keep them feathers up.